Okay, welcome to writing economics. And all the economists in here can do the math, right? And you can all write too. But we want to talk about raising our standards up a bit. Okay? Because the fellow that's in the classroom before this, he teaches freshman composition, right? And you all had to take that, right? Yeah. Yeah. Not new. Yeah. Okay. This is Gary Senick. Gary has been my editor since 1987. Yeah, okay. So, a long time.
It's nice to be with you today. Thanks for having me. I worked with John on his doctoral thesis, for which he won the Lebanon Award. And we've been working together ever since on publications. We
The last 15 years has been the legal news column.
Right. Yeah, we write a column for the Detroit and Oakland County Legal News. John has written some books that I've edited that have been published. And just about everything that he writes, he's asked me to edit, so I'm grateful for that. So I'm happy to be with you today. My background is I'm a freelance writer and editor. My specialty is working with authors who have written fiction and nonfiction. They're trying to get their works published. And I've had a lot of success rate with them. What I do is I take their original manuscripts and I edit them for style and for content, and I try to bring them up to a professional level. And that's what I would like to do with you today with your term papers. Now you may ask yourself, I've had freshman comp, I had a lot of this stuff in high school, and why do I need it now? The point is that what John and I would like to do is to give you some tools that you can apply to your term papers, and the effect will be that your papers will be more effective, and you will be able to use these papers beyond this class. What we would like you to do is to be able to help you to create documents that you can take beyond this class, use as examples of your writing to give to prospective employers. Because often, employers will ask for a writing sample.
Actually, what I'm finding out is that more and more employers are doing two things. One is they want a writing sample up front before you get hired, but I was talking to Jill, who works at a marketing company, and during that 90-day period, they decide based upon the actual writing that you do there on the projects whether they're going to keep you or not. And this is, the reason is because anybody can give a writing sample, you don't know who wrote it necessarily. Okay? And employers have gotten hip to this, and they're saying, okay, we'll take this, and everything else, we'll hire you, give you a trial, but, unless you can perform up to the standard of what you gave them, then you're out the door. So this is what the market is out there right now. Now, your experience is you were a supervising editor, senior editor at Gale Research here in Detroit, which is
It's an information specialist, published reference books for schools and libraries, and did a lot of electronic materials. You may have used some of the products when you were in high school. You might have used them now while you're here at Wayne. They used to be located downtown in both the book building and the Penobscot building. Now they're out in Farmington Hills, and they call themselves Cengage. And I haven't been associated with them for several years, but I did a lot of freelance work for them.
They were bought by Cengage.
Yeah.
That's what happened.
Yeah, they're Thompson, Thomson company now, if any of you know that company. But I learned enough from working at that company that I could start my own business, which I did in 1997. So that's what I've done. I've published nationally and locally, and as I said, worked with a lot of authors who have also been published. So it's been really good to do that. So I want to use my expertise to help you today, and I hope that what John and I talk about will be helpful to you.
Okay, well, let's start at the beginning.
Okay?
And then when we get to the end, we'll stop.
That sounds good.
Okay.
That sounds good. Okay, your term papers. You've all received a syllabus from John about what the expectations are for your term papers, that you're choosing a subject, and it has to do, it's a wide range of subjects that you can choose from in your field. Then you're doing extensive research on it. Then you're going to take that research and you're going to write your paper. Now, that's the basics. What we want to do today is to talk about bringing up this information and your paper to a higher level. So the first thing that you want to do, once you've got all your information, you've made your choice of your subject, you've gotten your information, what do? The first suggestion that I have is to make an outline of this material. And it's good to use what is called the inverted pyramid approach. So just imagine a pyramid, like those they find in Egypt, turn it upside down. So you've got the big end at the top, the small end at the bottom.
Like a funnel.
Like a funnel. What you do with the inverted pyramid is to take your most important points, put them at the top, and then decrease those points in order of importance. So you go from most important to lesser importance. And you can use that format for each section of your term paper. Your introduction, your development section, and your summary conclusion. If you do that, you'll be able to focus your points so they're not going to be all over the place. Because that's what we've seen in a lot of papers. There's good information, but it's very diffuse. It's all over the map. And that doesn't make for a good paper because it's too convoluted. So you want to have your points going from most important through to the lesser important. So that's the first order of business. Start with an outline. Once you've done your outline, then you're ready to get into the meat of your writing.
So now with outlines.
Yeah.
On these things we're talking about.
Yeah.
Should they be full sentence outlines or just a few words?
No, they don't need to be full sentences.
And how much detail?
Not a lot of detail for your outlines, because this is just for you to organize your material and to put in what you're going to be writing about in what order. So whatever format you choose to do that, it's up to you. It can be a few words, it can be whole sentences, it can be illustrations, it can be numbers, letters, whatever works for you. But just so you are able, in your mind, to organize the material in such a way that it's most effective before you start writing. If you do that, you'll be way ahead of the game because you will have focused on each section and given each point in order.
Now, I asked them for a one-page outline for a 10-page paper.
Right.
So,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
okay.
Absolutely, that sounds good. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay, good. So you want to start with your introduction. Now, what I suggest in your introduction is start your paper by saying exactly what you're going to cover in it. For example, using what we call thesis sentences, that's T-H-E-S-I-S, or theses, T-H-E-S-E-S. SES if you use more than one. What are these? This is telling the reader right from the get-go what your paper will include. You want to use the format, in this paper, comma, I will explain, ... or in this paper, I will demonstrate, ... Let me give you a couple of examples that might help you.
Here, we have this one right here. You know.
Okay, let's use it.
Let's see, in this month's column, we will explore the endangered art of writing in the fields of law, economics, and related professions.
That's good.
There you go.
That's good.
The rest of it's all just that.
That. Well, here's one that we took from a past paper. In this paper, I will show how the government of the city of Detroit during the Kilpatrick administration has caused its residents to turn to crime to support themselves. Or, in this paper, I will explain how the economic system in the United States has declined since 2008. So you see what these individuals have done. They've said specifically what their paper will include. Now the rest of your introduction section can then amplify what your thesis sentences have said. Then in your development, you'll go into greater detail about what you said you're going to do in your introduction. In your summary conclusion, what you will do is provide an analysis of your research. You'll take what you said in the intro and the development and give your well thought out, considered opinions on the subject. And I'll get into that in a minute.
The thesis sentence is sort of like you buy a can of some kind of kitchen cleaner, and on it will say what this is supposed to do for you and not to use it on certain types of surfaces, etc. Right? It's all right there, you know, like one or two sentences, so you know what this product is, what it will do, what it won't do. Right?
That's a good way to put it. So that's your introduction, using your thesis sentences, and I'd say 1 to 2 sentences is fine for your intro, and then just explain to us what we're going to find in your paper. You know, give a little summary in your introduction of what your paper will include.
They're doing like half to 3/4 of a page.
Yeah.
Double space.
Right.
The full introduction.
Yeah. So it doesn't have to be a lot, just enough to explain what we're going to find in your paper. So then you can get into your development section. Now here, you want to write in your own words. Don't just regurgitate the source material. And do not include a lot of quotes, because where a lot of writers will fall down is they will give like one line of their own, and then there'll be like 5 or 6 quoted sentences, then another line of their own, then another 5 to 6 quoted sentences. You don't want to do that. Don't make that mistake. What you want to do is to paraphrase your source material in your own words. That's what John and I would like to see.
There's an art to paraphrase.
There's a real art to paraphrasing. Yeah, because...
To be able to take different pieces and paraphrase it and synthesize it into one thought, which is from your own voice.
Right, exactly. That's well put, yes. In your own voice. That's what we're looking for. Because you will have gone through all your references. You'll be the master of your sources, the master of your subject. So you know what these sources are saying. So what your job is, tell us in your own words what these sources are saying. What point are you trying to develop? That's what we want to know. And when you're explaining, do so in a manner that takes it from beginning to end. Because John knows economics. I know a little from a long association with John.
You do, actually.
So yeah, so I know something, but not as much as you. So what you need to do is to tell us or anyone else who are your readers, what is it exactly that you want to say. Make sure all your points have a beginning, a middle, and an end. That is very important. Because where a lot of writers will fall down is because they know the material very well. They think everybody else knows the material as well as they do. That's not necessarily the case.
Well, what the acronyms mean.
Yeah, what the acronyms mean, yeah, that's very important.
FOMC. Okay, how many people know what FOMC is? Econ majors, come on. Federal Open Market Committee, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, even you've studied it, I mean, it's like, just to recall that, so when you use acronyms, you know, like, remember on the video of the engineer presenting really bad PowerPoints and all the acronyms and how terrible it comes across? Yeah, so if they use an acronym, the acronym should be introduced like you would say, the first time you mention it, Federal Open Market Committee, and then in parentheses immediately following FOMC. Then you can save space later on by just calling it FOMC once you establish exactly what that is.
Right. So what you're doing in the development section is looking for the facts, themes, and patterns that you found in your research. You've got an idea in mind about what it is you want to write about. So your development section is using that information to expand on your point or points. Facts, themes, and patterns. That's what you want to amplify in your development section. So if you do that, you'll have a very thorough explanation of your thesis sentences. And that's what we're looking for in your term paper.
I have Gary help me, as another set of eyes, read these.
Right.
Because he sees things I don't see him talk about it. And so he's my assistant on reviewing the papers.
And I do that with John's own writing.
All the time.
Yeah, so what we do, John will come up with an idea for, let's just say, an article for the legal news, and he'll write about it from an economist's viewpoint. And we're writing for attorneys, an audience of attorneys. So that's...
So there's an implied audience. You may want to choose the implied audience as your, if you're going into a particular field or thinking of using this as an introductory piece of writing at a particular agency of the government or private sector, company, whatever, you may want to use that as your implied audience. You don't have to use me or us as your implied audience. So you get to choose on that along with the topic. So, make it fit the topic. I'll figure out, who you're writing to.
Right. Okay. But what we do, John will write his article. He'll do his outline. He'll do a rough draft. Then he'll do a final draft, and then I'll come in.
I usually do 3 drafts.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you do. That's right. That's right. I forgot. It's not just one.
No,
yeah.
No. And then he still tears the thing apart.
That's my job.
Yeah.
That's my job. But what I'm looking for are the things I'm going to be looking for in your term papers. How is the content? Is it thorough? Does it make sense? How's your writing style? Is it flowing well? Is it filled with spelling errors, grammatical errors? How can it be improved? And what is being said here? Are you giving as much information to your audience, your target audience, as you can? Can things be moved around to be more effective? That kind of thing is what I do with John.
Yeah. Actually, I get so subjective because of being deeply embroiled in urban economics and urban studies and things like that. that I have kind of blinders on, so having somebody that has a tangential knowledge of a lot of the stuff, who is going to be more the outside reader, just really helps a lot. So I've never walked him through principles of economics or anything like that. He's just kind of picked up what he needs to know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if I don't know something, I'll ask John to explain it, and then sometimes we'll put an explanation in the article because the legal community probably wouldn't know the economic term or whatever other term that John has chosen to use.
Maybe there's some attorneys that have studied business or economics in undergrad, but they're the minority.
Yeah.
Okay.
But see, and that brings up a good point for you as term paper writers. If you're using a term, define it. It doesn't have to be a long definition, but just a little short explanation of it.
A phrase.
Yeah.
Putting commas after the concept.
And the same is true if you're using an individual, a source. You know, if it's John Maynard Keynes, for example. You know, say who John Maynard Keynes is, because not all of your readership,
I know who he is.
well, I know who he is too now,
Yeah,
but not everybody who reads your paper, such as a prospective employer, might know who Keynes is. So therefore, just put in a little short phrase, you know, Scottish economist John Maynard Keynes, you know, that kind of thing.
18th, was it? 18th
18th
century
century.
Scottish economist.
Right, yeah, that even better. As much as you can put in to identify the
Without
person
rambling.
without rambling, yeah, that really helps. So that's your development. Your term paper is not your PowerPoint presentation. The two are very different animals. The term paper is an in-depth analysis of your subject where you're outlining your points, you're developing them, and then you're giving a conclusion in which you give some opinions about your subject. The PowerPoint presentation takes the highlights from your term paper and presents them in a visually arresting manner. So they're very different. I mean, they're connected, yes,
But to read a whole 10-page paper is what, half hour?
probably, yeah.
And they have 6 minutes and 40 seconds for the slide presentation.
Yeah. But see, a lot of writers will make the mistake of just regurgitating what they did in their PowerPoint presentation in their term paper. And it's very short, it's too concise. You know, it doesn't give a lot of information. It's just very basic, and it's not what we're looking for. So.
Think of the term paper as the takeaway document that you could leave with somebody. You do the presentation, hopefully they'll remember your face and, you know, your pleasant personality.
Right.
And your excellent, you know, PowerPoint show. But that kind of fades with time. But then if they have a thorough, well-written document that if they read through it, they can go back and visualize what you had showed them.
Yeah, absolutely. So now you go to your summary conclusion. Now, I would call this the make it or break it part of the paper, because you've gone through your research, you've explained everything, you're getting to the, you've amplified your points. But here, you are showing your reader that you really understand your subject, and importantly, you can make some well-considered opinions about it. Because you know your subject. As I said, you're the master of it. So now what you want to do is to talk about the history, the current status, and the future of your subject. What have you learned in doing the research? What opinions have you developed from doing the research? Let me give you some examples here. What you want to do is ask yourself some very pointed questions. you want to ask yourself, what have I learned? What kinds of things is my subject doing right? What kinds of things is my subject not doing right? If they're not doing some things right, what would I suggest to fix them? What can my subject do differently to improve his or her organization or business? That kind of thing.
Some of it's descriptive, some of it's prescriptive.
That's a good way to do it. Yeah, call it that. Yeah, so those are the kinds of things that we look for in order for you to present a very well-considered opinion in your paper. What you want to do is close out your paper with a bang. You want your reader, whomever he or she is, to say, wow, this person really knows the subject. And they've made some really astute comments about the subject.
And has explained it well to me, who doesn't really know much about that subject.
Right. And this is where John's expertise really comes to the fore, the economic principles in your paper are very defined and they're accurate. So whatever you have economically explained should be very clear. So we're looking for clarity, we're looking for conciseness, but we're also looking for a very well-intentioned and well-written examination of your subject. And we want to see some passion. You have chosen this subject. This is your baby. So therefore, you've got a vested interest in your subject. So your paper then should reflect your enthusiasm. Those are the papers that get the A's, the ones that are well written and impassioned, have good information, the writing is really clear and accurate, and there's real enthusiasm about the subject.
If you don't have a passion for it, then ask yourself, why am I bothering to major in economics, urban studies, or urban planning?
Or have I chosen the right subject? Because maybe there's something else you can write about, something that you've discovered in your research about which you have more enthusiasm. Something that you think, wow, this is even better than my original subject. Well, you talk for a minute about how you choose your topics for papers, because...
Yeah. Well, when I'm writing for the legal news, I mean, part of it is low-profile marketing. You ever heard that term? You're marketing, you're selling yourself without really selling yourself or overtly marketing.
Yeah.
It used to be called positioning papers and things like that. So many of the things I'll do is things which are relevant directly to attorneys or their interaction with economists in the courtroom or on a case, and I'll share that kind of thing in articles. I'll pick those. A lot of times I just realized, I used to play in rock bands with guys that went on to become attorneys. Okay? There's a lot of attorneys that used to be musicians and still are. I may find something else that might interest them. Because I'm interested in music business, because I've been in it, and I'll write about the copyright law and how that's changed and how it's influenced the music industry or something like that. So this is that, I have some depth and interest in myself, and, an intelligent reader is going to get something out of it. It's not like talking above anybody's head, but just, saying, hey, this is an important issue. So it made an interesting article.
Really did. Now, one thing that will help is that a lot of writers will do a good intro, they'll have their thesis sentences, they'll do a good development, but then when they get to their summary conclusion, they fall down. It's really lame. because they don't explain, they don't give any of their own opinions, they just sort of re-summarize what they've already talked about in their paper. With the summary conclusion, what you should be concentrating on is some new information, some tying up what you've already covered in with what you're projecting.
And with a bang.
And with a bang.
You know,
Yeah.
like fireworks, you know, it's like a boom, 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 boom at the end.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
You know, personally, I am very glad to have Gary help me with my articles, because I hate writing summaries. And it's like pulling teeth, you know? And so, yeah, I'll often leave it, work on it with him.
Yeah, and that works out really well because, you know, I'll pose a question to John, like, okay, you've got this information, what are you trying to give to our audience with it? What kinds of things do you want them to take away? And that will get him to really get creative, and we always come up with really good conclusions because of
I have to
that.
explain it to him, and if it's an idea in economics and law that he may not be that familiar with, I can put it in words that if he can understand it, he's kind of the representative of every man, every woman, audience member,
Right.
Who hopefully will be able to understand it as well.
Yeah. So that leads me to a suggestion for you, that if you're having a hard time with your summary conclusion, sit down with somebody, you know, your wife, husband, boyfriend, girlfriend, your grandma, you know, and just say, okay, this is what I've covered, this is what I want to express, but I'm having a little bit of a problem. What do you think about what you've read or what I've told you about? What direction should I go into? Have a conversation, because that's what we do. We converse about it,
Yeah.
and that leads to aha moments where you can say, oh yeah, that's it. That's what I need to say. That's the point that I want to make with my term paper. This is where I think things are going with my subject. This is where I think they could do better. This is where I think they've done well. And this is what I want to leave the reader with. So that...
Doing that, the two of us together, usually takes us, 3 to 4 hours typically?
Yeah.
And a pot of coffee.
Yeah, it does. But that means what we do is I take the original document that John has given me, I edit it for all the basic grammar and spelling and construction
Things that I not see.
Right.
Because I've got, after 3 versions of it, I, have so much subjectivity, not enough objectivity left.
Right.
That it sounds good to me, but yeah, and it's like it can be cleaned up. And he's a guy that, it's like you're responsible for 4 volumes of referential material per year.
Yeah, 4 volumes per year.
And about that thick.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what he was in charge of publishing. So he paid his dues.
And I trained other editors to be editors, so that helped me too.
Yeah.
But then John and I will get together once I have his document edited, and we'll make the changes, and then John or I will read it out loud to each other, and that really helps. And that's a suggestion that I want to make to you, is once you get your paper done, read it out loud to someone, or have somebody read it out loud to you, because what you will find as you read it out loud will amaze you. You will see, oh wow, I didn't explain this enough, or somebody who's reading it will stumble over a word or a phrase, and if that person stumbles over the word or phrase while reading it aloud, John or I, or anyone else who reads the paper silently, will also stumble over it with their eyes.
You get the economic version of Silly Sam's sister Sally sells seashells at the seashore.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's true.
which doesn't roll off the tongue that well, and sounds really convoluted. When you hear it, when you read it, it's like, yeah, you're picking all this stuff up in a different way.
Yeah.
It's going in directly from the page into your pre-conscious through the eyes. When you hear it, you hear, it's just,
Yeah, it falls flat. It really does. Or it needs to be amplified or explained more in order to make sense. And that's a lot of the time what will bring a paper down is the writer knows the material well but isn't explaining it. So it doesn't even make sense to a reader. It's like, okay, I get where you're trying to go with this, but it doesn't jive. You know, and how many times have I asked you, okay, what does this mean?
and they have to explain it.
Yeah.
I know what it means.
Yeah.
Austin knows what it means, you know, I study all the stuff, yeah, so, oh yeah, you know, you just take the second, you know, derivative of this, and you said, but that doesn't mean anything to him.
No, it doesn't.
So,
And it won't to your readers either, you know, like a prospective employer. You know, you want your work to be as clear and concise as it possibly can. And also, and this leads me to the next subject, you want the style to be as good as it can be. You want your writing style to be really, really special, and that includes not only having all your technical things be correct, your construction, sentence construction, not having sentence fragments, not having misspellings, not having misuse of grammar, that kind of thing. But also the flow of your writing style. Is your writing as good as it can be? For example, are you using good sentence construction where you've got a declarative sentence? A sentence like, I am helping John teach this class today, period. Having a couple of those, then followed by what's called, gosh, now I forgot what it's called. A phrase, introductory clause, thank you. Introductory clause sentence where it starts with a phrase. On Thursday, I will be working at home. On Thursday, comma, I will be working at home. So you see the difference between the two. The one is just a straight out statement.
you're like, bang.
Bang.
Start to bang. You do that too much, then you want to, you know, do.
Yeah, because if you do the declarative sentences too much, you end up sounding simplistic.
Yeah,
You know, like
it does.
it's very repetitive. So you want to vary your sentence structure by using sentences with an introductory phrase like, on Thursday, comma, I will be at home. You know, so it's something with a phrase.
And not too short, but also not too long
Yeah,
of a sentence.
right.
I mean, see Jane run. It's fine for what its purpose is, but you can, I mean, having a two-word sentence is good if you use it like to really punch something that
Yeah.
could make it stand
Yeah,
out.
but make sure it has a subject and a verb and just isn't a fragment. Because there's a lot of fragments floating around in term papers, and
Yeah.
that's not good. Yeah, that's true. Now, you have access to the videos that John and I have done about the specifics of writing. The ones where I'm up at the board and I'm going through things like, you know, what I just said, use declarative sentences and sentences with introductory phrases, you know, and don't split infinitives, you know, having like a word follow to before it gets to the verb, to before it gets to the verb, you know, stuff like that. So please look at those videos.
The one is on Urban Econ Detroit, it's the 24 writing tips or something like that.
Yeah, 24 writing tips.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
That's a good one. There's also, there's some books I found that are coming out in block because they were just very useful. One is Amy Einson, Einsohn, first name Amy, A-M-Y. The Copy Editor's Handbook, a guide for book publishing and corporate communications. fine book as a reference book. And of course, the Chicago Manual of Style, that
Yeah.
goes without saying.
Yeah, that's the editor's Bible, and Wayne's library will have that.
Yeah.
Bookstores, any bookstore will have it. Yeah, that's a really good one. Another one is The Elements of Style by Strunk, S-T-R-U-N-K, and White, W-H-I-T-E. It's a very thin book,
Yeah.
but it's really good because it talks about the best ways to write. It is the classic.
It still is the classic, even though it's like, you know, wow, I had that in high school as a high school book. No,
Yeah,
it's still the foundation of this and easy to use. And, well, E.B. White, and good author on his
wrote
own.
Charlotte's Web, Stuart Little, The Trumpet of the Swan. You know, he's a really good writer. So, yeah, that's a very, very excellent book. Now, one more thing to help you with your papers is if you are not that strong as a writer, or perhaps English isn't your native language, I would suggest go to the writing clinic here at Wayne with your paper, give it to somebody who can read it and make some suggestions to you, help you with the grammar and punctuation, with your style if necessary, because I've seen lots and lots of papers where the content is there, but the grammar, the sentence fragments, all that stuff brings down the paper because the person didn't have a great knowledge of the language, or they just weren't that terrific of a writer. So you can really help yourself by having another set of eyes look at it.
That's why I've been encouraging the group to act as a group and help one another. And it's not competitive in the sense that if I help somebody else, they're going to do better than I am, get a higher grade. No, it's actually everybody's going to do better. And you'll learn more, and you have some eyes who are probably going to be more willing to look at your work because you're willing to look at their work.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
listen to what they have, and lots of different perspectives. This is our one-room schoolhouse. We got a variety of backgrounds, graduate students in econ, graduate students in urban planning, undergrads in urban studies, and undergraduate economic students. And once in a while we get like a history major or somebody else that wanders in, and we have one guest student this term. So yeah, and this is our one-room schoolhouse.
That's great. Well, with that kind of background, you really can help each other. You really can.
They're a philosophy major.
Oh.
Econ minor.
Great. Wow, nice. Yeah, that's a really good cross-section. So, yeah, trade papers, and if there's difficulties, go to the writing clinic and have those people look at it for those specific grammar, punctuation,
writing
kinds of things.
We're all educated here, right? This is basically a senior level class, graduate level class. So, everyone should have some sense of what they're doing, and they've made it this far, so it makes a good work group.
Definitely.
Okay? 2, 3 people, 4 people, whatever you want, make an evening of it. Bring some food, some beverages, whatever. Just read the stuff through each other.
Yeah. Have you ever seen the movie from the 70s called The Paper Chase about law school? That's what they did. They had a study group and they all exchanged their papers, and they had a really tough professor. So, it helped them get through, get better grades. So do that, yeah, and help each other out. Say, hey, this sounds really good. I really like what you did here, but I think you can expand here, or I don't understand this part. Explain it to me. Those kinds of things are essential. That will help bring up the level of your paper immeasurably.
That'll make you a valuable takeaway from class, so you end up not just with a grade, but you end up with something that you can use professionally, at least to get in the door someplace.
Absolutely.